The sun in the Arizona Territory was sinking low, turning the cracked earth orange and red when 5 cowboys spotted her stumbling through the sagebrush. Her dress was torn at the side, her hand pressed tight over her stomach. Blood slipped between her fingers. She was barefoot, shaking, and her skin was pale like she was already halfway to leaving this world. She did not cry out. She did not wave for help. She just kept walking, one slow step after another like she was moving, only because stopping meant dying. One cowboy muttered that she'd been shot. None of them moved, none except Fletcher Ward. Fletcher swung down from his horse without a word. His boots hit the dust hard as he walked toward her fast, like he knew she only had seconds left. She dropped to her knees before he reached her. "Hey," he said softly as he crouched down. "You with me?" She lifted her face. Her lips were cracked. Her breath came in small, shaking gasps. Fever burned under her skin. But she met his eyes. "Water," she whispered. Fletcher grabbed his canteen and held it to her mouth. She drank in trembling gulps, her hand gripping his wrist like he was the only solid thing in the world. "Name?" he asked. She blinked slow. "Georgia." Fletcher's brow raised for a moment. "Georgia Fletcher," she added with a weak laugh that broke into a cough. "Married name." "Not anymore." The other cowboys turned their horses away. One rode off. None offered help. Fletcher shook his head in disgust. "You've got a bullet in you," he said gently. "I need to get you to shade." She nodded, breath shallow, her dress soaked with blood. Fletcher lifted her into his arms. She was so light he could feel her bones through her back. She hissed in pain but didn't scream. She just held on. His horse followed behind as Fletcher carried her across a dry wash to a stand of cottonwoods where a small stream ran. He laid her down beside the water and soaked a cloth, pressing it to her wound as carefully as he could. "Who did this?" he asked. Her voice was barely there. "3 men took the wagon, left me for dead." Fletcher didn't ask more. She needed strength, not questions. He cleaned the wound. The bullet had gone through, but it left a deep tear. Fletcher cut away the damaged cloth and packed the wound with wet fabric. "You need a doctor," he said. "Closest one is Santa Rosa, 2 days' ride." She closed her eyes, breathing hard. Fletcher stayed by her the whole night. He fed her water, changed the cloth, and kept the fire steady. She never truly slept. She moaned in fever, whispered things she didn't understand, flinched from ghosts in her dreams. Once, near dawn, she grabbed his hand tight. "Elijah," she whispered. "Who's that?" Fletcher asked. "My boy, he's 5, they took him, and my girl Ellen, 7. I hid them, don't know if they're—" Her voice broke. "I have to find them." "You will," Fletcher said. "I promise." She looked at him then, not with trust, not yet, but something close, something new. By morning she could sit up a little. Fletcher brewed coffee, tore strips from his own shirt, and wrapped her wound tighter. He found berries by the water and convinced her to eat a few. When the day grew hot, they set out. Fletcher lifted her onto his horse and rode slow, keeping her upright against his chest. She leaned back, too weak to hold herself. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "I know." "Then why are you?" His voice was quiet. "Because I couldn't ride away." They reached a small ranch house by dusk. Fletcher's friend, Maria, took them in, cleaned Georgia's wound with proper care, and gave her warm broth. Fletcher stood watch by the window as she rested in a real bed for the first time since everything fell apart. When the wind moved the curtains, she turned her head toward him. "I remember your name now," she said. "You rode through our town once with cattle, bought peaches from my stand." Fletcher frowned, then smiled slow. "I remember that." "I thought you were handsome," she whispered. "You should have told me." "I was married then." His smile faded, but not completely. "And now?" he asked softly. "My husband died last year. Fever." "I'm sorry." "I'm not," she said quietly. He wasn't kind. Fletcher walked over and crouched beside her bed. "You don't have to talk about that." "I know, but I want to." She told him enough to understand why she carried so much silence. He listened, his hand resting gently on the quilt near hers. "We'll find your children," he said. "I swear it." She searched his face. "Why do you care?" Quote. He held her gaze. "I don't know, but I do." She reached out, slow and unsure, and took his hand. He didn't pull away. They stayed like that until her breathing evened and her eyes drifted shut. And for the first time since the men took everything from her, Georgia slept without fear. The second morning brought a soft gray light and a cool breeze through Maria's porch. Georgia sat wrapped in a faded quilt, watching two magpies hop around a crust of bread. She looked stronger, but she held herself carefully, guarding her side where Fletcher had bandaged her. She didn't turn when Fletcher stepped outside, but she straightened a little, like she recognized the weight of his footsteps. He handed her a warm tin cup of coffee. "Maria said you were up before sunrise," she said. "I had to speak to a man in town," he replied. "Name's Cal Bayans, knows things other men don't." Her fingers tightened around the cup. "About my children?" Fletcher nodded. "A wagon passed through Santa Rosa 3 days ago. 2 kids with it. A boy with a limp. A girl with a locket." Her breath caught. "That's them," she whispered. "Did he say who had them?" Quote, "A man named Pike Crenshaw. Used to run horses out in Prescott. Fell into debt. He's been drifting since. Folks say he's headed east and staying off the main trails." Georgia stared toward the horizon. Her jaw worked, fighting emotion. "He wasn't one of the men who took our wagon." "No," Fletcher said, "but he might have bought it. Or taken the kids after." Silence rolled in like dust on the wind. "I should be riding after them," she said. "You're not ready." Her head snapped toward him. "I won't be left behind like something broken." "No one is keeping you behind," Fletcher answered softly. "But if you ride now, you'll tear that wound open. You won't make it 10 miles. Quote. She looked away, pride tight in her throat. Fletcher didn't push. He respected her too much for that. He sat beside her, elbows resting on his knees. "I know someone in Winslow," he said. "Old friend with express riders. He might know Crenshaw's trail." She studied him carefully. "Why are you doing all this?" "You already answered once. I want the real reason." Fletcher breathed slow. "My mother spent years waiting for my father to come home," he said. "Every day she'd stand by the road, hoping for news, hoping for anything. Waiting eats a person alive." George's eyes softened just a little. "Your father?" "He left to settle a debt, never came back." She looked down at her hands. "I didn't expect kindness," she whispered. "Not after what happened. I'm not doing it out of kindness." "Then what?" He met her eyes. "If someone had found my mother bleeding in the dirt and walked away, I'd never forgive it." The screen door squeaked as Maria stepped out. "Your horse is ready, Senor Fletcher," she said. "Thank you." Maria looked at Georgia. "You need anything, call me." She went inside, leaving them alone. Fletcher turned to Georgia. "I'll be back by dusk. Stay off your feet." A small spark of humor tugged at her mouth. "You always order women around?" "Only the ones who scare me." A real smile touched her lips then. Soft, but real. When Fletcher rode out, she watched him until he vanished behind the ridge. Inside, Maria had set a basin of water and a clean shift. Georgia washed carefully, brushed out her tangled hair, and dressed. She didn't look at her wound. There was nothing to gain from that. That evening, Fletcher returned, dust on his hat, determination in his eyes. "They crossed the Verde River 2 days ago," he said. "Headed for the Malin Rim. Crenshaw's got 2 men riding with him." Her breath quickened. "And my children?" "Still with him," Fletcher said. "No harm done. Not yet." Georgia stood slowly. "Then we leave at first light." This time, Fletcher didn't argue. A strong woman, ready to fight for her children, needed no permission. "We'll need blankets, food, and shot," he said. "I can ride," she told him. He looked at her long and steady. "I believe you." For the first time, something settled between them. Not romance yet, not hope, but a partnership born from dust, danger, and shared purpose. They rode at dawn the next morning. The land stretched wide under the rising sun, open and unforgiving. Georgia rode Maria's old sorrel gelding, her posture straight, her eyes sharp. Fletcher rode in silence beside her, his rifle strapped across his back, his focus set on the trail. Hours passed. They traveled across rolling grassland in dry washes that carved the earth like veins. They stopped under junipers for water. Georgia knelt and splashed cold water onto her neck. "You're favoring your left side," Fletcher said. "It pulls less this way. You'll open the wound." "I figured that out already," she said, raising her chin. Fletcher stepped closer and took a small tin from his saddlebag. "Maria gave me this. Pine tar and bear fat. Helps the skin heal." He lifted her blouse just enough to spread the salve on the bandage. His hands were rough but gentle. She stayed still, breath tight. "You always carry the right things," Georgia murmured. "I've had practice," he said. "Took a musket ball through my thigh once. Had to stitch it with a bone needle." She glanced at him. "You ever think about settling?" He closed the tin. "Used to," he said. "Not sure now." They rode on until they reached a clearing. A cold fire, fresh wagon tracks. "Less than a day old," Fletcher said. Georgia found a strip of pink cloth caught on a thorn. She lifted it with shaking fingers. "Ellen's," she whispered. Her children were close. That night they camped near a dry arroyo. Fletcher cooked beans and biscuit. Georgia sat near the fire, knees pulled close. "You said you used to think about settling," she reminded him. "Yeah. What changed?" He stared at the stars. "Didn't think I'd find someone who'd stay." Georgia watched the flames, her voice low. "I stayed somewhere for 9 years. Not because I belonged there, but because I didn't know where else to go." He turned toward her. "And now?" "Now I know exactly where I won't ever go again." Quote. Fletcher lay down beside her, not touching but near. Warmth passed quietly between them, something solid, something new. "Tomorrow?" she whispered. "I get them back." "You will," Fletcher said. "Then we'll see." And for the first time in a long, long time, Georgia closed her eyes without fear. Mist hung low over the river the next morning, softening the world into pale shapes. Georgia rose early, wrapped in Fletcher's coat, her children skipping small stones into the slow water. Elijah limped a little more after yesterday's hard ride, but he didn't complain. Ellen whispered to her doll as if she trusted it with secrets no adult could carry. Fletcher sat near the fire bank, rubbing down the horses. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his movements steady and sure. Georgia walked to him quietly. "You sleep?" he asked without looking up. "Better than I expected," she said. Fletcher nodded once. "Your kids need shoes." "And coats." "Ellen's is falling apart." Georgia sighed. "There's a woman in Pine Hollow, Martha. She used to sew for my sister. She might still be there. But Fletcher, I don't know if I can show my face in that town." He set the brush down and stood to face her. "No one has the right to judge you." "They will anyway," she said. "A widow with 2 children, no land, and a last name I never wanted. They'll remember what I ran from, not why." Fletcher stepped closer. "You left because you survived. That's nothing to hide from, and I'll help build whatever comes next." She stared at him, her breath catching. "You mean to stay?" Quote. "I do." "You take us on, all of us?" Fletcher's voice softened. "I already have." By evening they reached Pine Hollow, a quiet town with tired buildings and a church bell that hadn't rung in months. Georgia guided her horse to a small house under an aging oak tree. When she knocked, an older woman answered, her hands covered in flour. "Martha," Georgia said. The woman stared, shocked. "Well," she murmured, "there's a face I never thought I'd see again." "I need work," Georgia said. "And my children need clothes." Martha stepped back, opening the door without hesitation. "Come in." Quote. Inside smelled like warm bread and laundry soap. Ellen clung to Georgia until Martha kneeled and offered cornbread. Elijah leaned quietly against Fletcher's leg. Martha agreed to let them stay in a small back room in exchange for help baking and sewing. It was not pity. It was 2 women filling each other's empty spaces. Fletcher found work repairing fences nearby. Each evening he returned dusty and tired, carrying fresh eggs or dried meat Martha insisted he take. By the third week, Georgia stood behind the counter of the town mercantile, measuring sugar and folding paper around beans. Some folks stared, some nodded politely. A few smiled. And every day Georgia stood a little straighter. One evening, Fletcher carved a wooden horse for Elijah while the children played on the porch. Georgia sat beside him, watching curls of wood fall to the floor. "Do you miss it?" she asked softly. "The riding, the quiet life out there?" "Sometimes," he admitted, "not like I thought I would." "What changed?" Fletcher looked at her like the answer was obvious. "You did." Quote. Her breath trembled. She reached out slowly, then boldly taking his hand. "I want to marry you," she said. Fletcher blinked. "You sure?" Quote. "I've been told my worth by other people for too long. This time I choose for myself." She glanced toward her sleeping children inside the house. "And I choose you." Fletcher's hand closed around hers. "Then we'll make a life," he said. Not perfect, not easy, but honest. The wedding was simple. A preacher from the next town, Ellen holding a basket of wildflowers, Elijah trying to act grown by standing beside Fletcher. They married under the old oak tree. Georgia wore a dress Martha had sewn from scraps. Fletcher wore his cleanest shirt. When they kissed, it wasn't rushed. It was steady and sure, like two people who had already lived a lifetime to reach that moment. That night, Georgia watched Fletcher light a small lamp in their room. The golden glow softened his eyes. "You look like something I dreamed up," he said. She stepped closer, closing the door behind her. "You feel like something I built from nothing," she replied. They spoke no more. The years that followed were quiet but full. Georgia helped run the mercantile when the owners retired. Fletcher grew vegetables and raised chickens. Ellen learned to read. Elijah's limp faded until it was barely a memory. Their house became warm, lived in, with quilts folded over chairs and muddy boots by the door. On many evenings, they sat on the porch together, shoulder to shoulder, watching the sky burn into colors only the West knew how to make. Georgia would lean her head against Fletcher's shoulder, and Fletcher would kiss her temple with the kind of gentleness a man only learns after loss. Their life wasn't grand, but it was theirs. It was safe. It was built from hurt, healed by hope, and held together by the kind of love that grows slow and steady, like the roots of the old oak tree behind their home. And the woman the cowboys had once ignored was now someone no one dared ride past again.